Good morning, everybody, to the LeanIX webinar, how to roll out LeanIX at your company. My name is Patrick. I'm the director of the professional services here at LeanIX, and will be your host for the webinar today. I'm going to show you how you can actually effectively roll out LeanIX at your company. I see that still some attendees are coming in. Nevertheless, I will kick off, give you a little bit of background about myself. As I said, Patrick, I'm working for LeanIX for now 2.5 years, mainly in the customer success management domain, and I took over as the director of professional services at the beginning of this year, with a heavy background also in the consulting industry, especially on enterprise architecture management and organizational development. Well, probably for those who do not know LeanIX yet, I would just like to give you a brief overview of our company. So we are founded in 2012 in Germany, and are currently serving more than 250 customers worldwide, and grew up to, I think it's now even about 200 employees in our offices in Bonn, Boston, and Hyderabad in India. This year we managed to be recognized as a visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for the AI tools. And also something where we are really proud of is the 4.8 Gartner Peer Insights ratings. Yeah, so ratings directly from our customers. Actually, the best rating in the whole Peer Insights in regards to EA tools. Giving a quick overview over our customer base, you can see that we are serving customers via all industries, and yeah, I think there are some familiar logos there. So just that you know, yeah, whom we are talking to, and also on what kind of customers our experience, especially on rollouts, is actually based on. Before I move on here, one little detail also for the upcoming slides and the upcoming session that will last about 20 to 30 minutes. You should find a Q&A box in your Zoom panel. Feel free to type in any kind of questions related to the presentation, and I will pick them up afterwards, after the presentation. So we blocked some time there to also answer those specific questions. Well, I want to open up with let's say basic assumption of the reason to introduce some enterprise architecture management in your company, and it's actually a huge amount of complexity that's created by IT or by the organization itself. And looking at our customers, even in the past, those customers we had, we're seeing like landscape where we are easily talking about around 500 processes, 1,000 applications, more than 2,500 technologies. So baseline here is saying like, okay, you really need to handle this complexity, and it's I think it's also clear that Excel, PowerPoint, and stuff is not doing it, that you need a tool and that you need to roll out a tool to manage this complexity. Nevertheless, this is I mean, it's even worse, let's say, than this kind of complexity, because what we've seen in the last, let's see, in the last year or few years, that this complexity even grows. Yeah, it's really growing as we are moving towards cloud and especially microservices, topics that we are heavily investigating into. Yeah, we'll be talking more about like 5,000 processes or 10,000 apps and services, and also large amount of technologies that need some kind of management. Yeah, let me put it like that. So yeah, from our perspective, or pretty much common sense, I would even say it's really inevitable to roll out a tool if you haven't done it yet, or move to a solution that's actually capable of yeah, enabling you to manage that complexity. Nevertheless, I said managing complexity is just the foundation, and we see that with a lot of customers, that the argument or the reasoning for EA to manage complexity, create transparency, doesn't make the case, and yeah, so we actually need something stronger, and this is why we what we learn from our customers, and thus can also recommend it, is to focus on yeah, concrete questions and business related questions of the key stakeholders to make the rollout a success. And I'm just telling you that in general before going into specific examples how to roll it out. But those are sample questions that seem to be quite simple, but are actually pretty hard to answer if you don't have the right data in place. Yeah? And they are reaching actually from an C level, where it's more about what parts of the business are impacted by failing applications, and is this actually even having revenue impact? What general dependencies or complexity is preventing faster sunsetting, or how could we move our on-premise environment into the cloud effectively? Or more on a tactical level, talking to your business partner, probably also domain architect as main stakeholders. It's more about reusing applications, whom to involve from IT, and especially also IT project management in many cases, and yeah, where's the heat also, let's say, in my portfolio in regards, for example, to GDPR related or regulatory related questions, and actually improve based on these questions. And finally, more operative questions with let's say IT service management or IT delivery as the key stakeholders. Which applications are at risk based on legacy technology you are using, where what activities could actually lead to technical debt, and identify those up front, and yeah, which products, vendors are we actually using? Is there yeah, potential for scaling those, or probably also consolidating those? So it's really coming down the success of the rollout to finally answer those kind of questions, and go beyond creating just let's say transparency in your IT landscape or in your architecture. In regards to the CIO, and this is something which we are really, let's say, approach we are really driving successfully. It's the argument that is actually by, for example, reducing the run costs, and I'm jumping here on the argument of cost management, or through enterprise architecture management, or freeing up budgets through enterprise architecture management activities. Yeah, that it will actually help the CIO or the senior management to free up budget for innovation, meaning being able to moving forward, change things, and thus say driving the digital transformation of the of your company. Really concretely, what we can do with LeanIX here is give you a few examples. Rationalize applications for saving costs. So reducing extended support costs by a certain factor. Probably not even running into extended support situations would be even better. Or in regards to more cloud-related topics, controlling your unneeded cloud spend by a certain amount. So these are the questions that we are actually looking at and trying to achieve, and where we in general see that addressing those questions are a profound point to actually make your tool rollout a success and to get that buy-in back up. Now, your question might be, okay, how to roll out LeanIX successfully, and that's also what we promised you in the invite to this webinar. What I'm going to present you is 3 different scenarios that we experienced, actually even some of them a couple of times, and which proved to be a good reference for a successful rollout. So I'm going to talk about one customer from the automotive supply area. They had the approach of starting small and then consecutively growing the EA and LeanIX, and their aspiration is to get a voice in the boardroom with their EA approach. And what they achieved, it's a constant increase of active permissions and usage in their workspace based on that approach. Second, customers from the banking industry, they choose to have a big bang, but based on a regulatory use case. They use this use case very smartly to roll out LeanIX more broader into their organization. And with the Big Bang itself, they managed to get 1,000 unique logins in the first month after the rollout, so after the go live actually. And then the third customers from manufacturing industry, they choose the approach which I call optimized time to value during the rollout. They are spinning off from the mother company and demand an independent IT within then finally 1 year, and actually achieve the baseline for their spin-off plan for the IT within 1 month. So let's talk about this start small and grow customer there. And I would actually like to walk you through the customer situation first, and then tell you what the success factors were. And say the headline for this approach really is to look for constant progress in rollout without overextending your organization. The customer situation there was that they really had a, let's say, rather low maturity EA. And a lot of distributed data in their, due to their distributed organization and lack of common understanding. As said, their aspiration was to position EA in the strategic planning and execution. And to give you an idea, they were relying a lot on Gartner models and stuff that they actually wanted to establish. There was not a strong management mandate for a specific use case, but the general backup to roll it out. And it was a small team, so they relied on collaboration, or needed to rely on collaboration. And success factors for this rollout approach, or in this situation with this rollout approach, is really starting with the basics, smaller scope use case, but have your long-term objectives defined, which is then again very important for the general communication about the about using EA as a strategic planning discipline in the future. And this aspiration should also be communicated, and based on this aspiration, also additional use cases should be added one after another. During the rollout, you definitely need to focus on those stakeholders in need for support. So having a close look, okay, where can I help with a probably limited baseline data you have, deliver successfully, of course, and then use the positive word of mouth of your stakeholders to spread actually use cases into the organization. It really demands close support of your key contributors in the beginning, so this is a focus point. The rollout approach itself is really suited for customers that rely on a small core team, have distributed information, but a mid to long-term commitment to establish the EA function. And to give you an idea how that could look like, so we'll start with, let's say, the two shorter phases, setting up the baseline, where it's on one hand about the baseline, but also about building the convincing communication and the search for well-suited initiatives, certain project, certain function to support, or probably a region that have EA-related problems. And then just deliver this first use case in this in this defined scope. What's important here is number one, the transfer of the knowledge to the pioneer, or establishing a pioneer. So your key persons in this use case should be really eager to go on with working with LeanIX and really being convinced using LeanIX. That's one success factor, or one point there. And other point is to document your learnings and your approach and make it reusable, because that's what you see in the phases 3 and 4, that you, yes, on the one hand, always see like, okay, are there additional use cases that I can roll out? But on the other hand, you want to replicate your first use case in another region or in another function. Yeah, and actually for making that scale, you want to rely on your learnings, on standard approaches, knowledge that you actually gained throughout your first projects. And this is, if you have a look at it, actually how you go on 2 times, 3 times. That you'll, on the one hand, try to start a new use case. On the other hand, try to replicate your existing use case in another region. And you will come to the point where you, number one, established enough pioneers, and number 2, established a certain set of use cases that the collaboration and the decentralized usage of LeanIX and contributing to your EA inventory will kick off. Second rollout approach, and this was actually the bank, a customer from a banking industry. I called it use case driven big bang. So it was actually a big bang rollout. Nevertheless, I choose this image here of those people, those 2 fellows getting a free ride on a train, and that's I choose it because the customer really smartly used this a regulatory demand to raise high awareness, get the people in touch with the tool, and then follow up with, let's say, less regulatory but more EA related use cases. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the detail, and you see here a headline there is also at leveraging high tool awareness by rolling out this this use case. The customer situation was that there was a good data baseline in place, but the low acceptance of the existing solution, or probably also bad collaboration features of the existing solution. They were facing regulatory requirements. It was actually the BIAT. It's a requirement I think every bank and probably also insurance should know. To drive awareness for the documentation of the IoT landscape. There was an urgent need for collaboration because it was a company-wide initiative. And there was a broad potential user base, but with a limited tool knowledge. Fair to say, what I want to say here, the regulatory requirements, everybody is actually aware of that in a bank. So it's a strong argument for people to say like, okay, you need to contribute to this use case, and people are also willing to do so because they know that auditors are around, internal revision is around, and they know about the urgency. So the success factors in this case were actually proper tool migration and data model cleanup. A lot of customers that we see that actually migrate from an, say, other long time established solution take the chance to decrease complexity and clean up the data model. They leveraged the regulatory use case to spread LeanIX usage early on. As said, they really focused on providing communication and tutorials about how to contribute to this use case. And with a big bang, even introduced the dedicated first level support on their side to really act fast and drive user acceptance. Also, if not everything is running like 100% as planned. And one very important point there, they focus on the key data to reduce the complexity for the data gathering. What I mean by it, like as soon as people log into the tool and see, let's say, the whole inventory and the whole options they have, they'll get distracted. So they really focused the workspace, the LeanIX workspace, to the most important things there. From a recommendation side, this is really suited for customers that have a business critical or regulatory driven, widely accepted use case. Actually, a good baseline data is required, or you need to really extend the preparation phase, and clear roles and responsibilities are already in place. So this is a proper baseline to choose this rollout approach. And from a rollout plan perspective, it roughly looks like that you'll prepare the rollout. And I gotta say, in a SaaS environment, it's probably way easier than let's say a big tool rollout in a non-SaaS environment. So a lot of technical aspects do not need as much attention as classically, and there you just need to focus on the data model migration, the subscription, also validation of gaps. So be really clear on a good baseline there. And then all the prep work for the activities that will start just after the go live. Actually the points I talked about in the slide before. And then you go live and you want to communicate this, of course, broadly, using presentations, using one-on-one sessions, or also webinars. And important here is, as you want to follow up with immediate steps, it's step-by-step documentation of about how expected activities should be done. Yeah, for example, step-by-step approach, how to use the survey if you're going to send out surveys after the go live, where we really have good experience with. The core team should really focus on operational support in this phase. Yeah? So everything should be set up, and as it is with Big Bang and in a big corporation, you will get requests, and you will be actually addressed with a lot of questions. So once you went through this go live phase, it's you will come more into an established EA phase. On one hand, you want to lead over your initial use case into, say, daily operations. In regards to this regulatory-driven use case, it were activities like recurring activities have been established. So sending out surveys regularly, making the data quality checks regularly, setting up dashboards for the responsible, say, portfolio owners or domain architects, whoever they might be named, to really use it on a daily basis. And then the interesting part is that you as an EA, you can leverage the awareness. Yeah, since the regulatory use case might not be the most fun one. Yeah, you can then start to look for, let's say, more classic use cases, like in the scope of application portfolio management, tech risk management, or also project related use cases, where you can actually engage in. Rolling out those use cases might refer to let's say to another plan to how to roll them out. A little bit dependent on your resources available. Yeah, if you have a lack of resources, you might go with this start small and grow approach, or something kind of like this. If you have more resources, you could probably roll out bigger use cases or more use cases in parallel just afterwards. All right, and then finally, it's the third example here is our optimized time to value rollout approach. And as the image shows, this one is really about getting hands-on and getting stuff done in the inventory and also in the preparation of data. And this is really well teamwork related on good teamwork. The customer situation here was, and it was a manufacturing customer, they had a low maturity EA, also with a lot of distributed data, even a lack of data quality. So definitions were unclear. Are we talking about an application or an IT component? Like the classic fundamental questions were unclear. They had a crystal clear use case. Yeah, they need to find out which applications depend on a mother company. Yeah, which they need to get independent from. They have heavy time constraints to deliver this plan. But the good thing is they have a high awareness for the project throughout the company. So people are willing to cooperate. Success factors here, of course, again, clean data baseline. But to move quickly, the core team just needed to define standards, definitions, and guidelines, and rely on them, use them without asking everybody. They exclusively focused on the data needed to fulfill the use case. So everything else is not shown. They didn't took any windfall effects or something, but exclusively focus on the data needed, probably for the immediate follow-up activities, but not more. We trained the core team thoroughly in using LeanIX, and they really established a decision-making mentality. Yeah, so not fundamental things are not questioned anytime anymore, but this was a success factor for sure to make decisions and stick to them. And again, reducing the complexity for data maintenance and giving very clear guidance to your stakeholders. That was the only way to collaborate or use the scarce time resources of the stakeholders to contribute to LeanIX, because yeah, every stakeholder in such a situation has a lot of things on the table. So you need to be very efficiently here. And this approach is actually suited for customers that have a well-defined use case with a very high urgency to deliver the results. Yeah, very tight timeline bound to any kind of important milestones. A high stakeholder awareness is needed. Yeah, if your stakeholders are not aware of the severity or urgency, you will have a hard time to ramp up LeanIX that fast, deliver the value this fast. And again, sample rollout plan here. Again, or in this case, like 4 phases, but you really narrow this down to more or less 1 month. So these can be seen more as sprints, as the other rollout approaches might have been might took a little bit longer. This here really refers to sprints with heavy lifting hands-on lifting from everybody involved. And here again, you set up the baseline, set up the responsibilities in the core team, being able to parallelize things, clean up the workspace and set standards, and introduce those guidelines and communication for your experts. You actually need to subscribe those experts to fact sheets, since what we did, or what we recommend here, to capture data, or at least additional data that you need to do your work. The survey functionality has proved to be very, very beneficial, and this is what we did in the second phase in the cleanup. We really, since the expert team didn't have the knowledge for the whole landscape and scope, we just needed to reach out to gather additional information. Did so via survey, which worked good, which really brought us 1 step forward in the phase 3, where it's about detailed work. There will be, in this case, there were applications that really needed focus, and where we are actually going really into integration architecture questions that we worked out there. And this was then also more based on workshop and one-to-one sessions with the key stakeholders, with the experts there. And then finally, important part actually is the project closing, or the initiative closing, where you'll of course have the results presentations, try to close gaps, or actually communicate the gaps that you have, then also follow up with the recommendations on the next steps from your perspective. Since you might all know, like, from this heavy lifting approaches, they are working on a time-boxed approach. There will be gaps, and everybody will be very, very happy to see how you want to take care of these gaps. And of course, also in regards to the plan for the follow-up, to get your recommendations, where to start, what to have an eye on. And probably what to just handle as a second priority. To finish that off, small summary here and the key learnings. Start small and grow. You want to introduce one use case after another, replicate the use cases, introduce via different regions and departments. And of course, you need to leverage your pioneers and communicate the long-term goals right from the beginning. The Big Bang approach requires a really clean baseline to get the acceptance right away. Give a clear guidance for the first step and using tools to actually use the momentum that you have. And you want to leverage the initial tool awareness to roll out additional use cases afterwards. And then finally, optimize time to value, define standards and definitions and stick to them. You want to foster a decision-making mentality to move fast, and you want to reduce complexity in the tool to enable your stakeholders to contribute as easy as possible. All right, this is it from my side, and I will have a quick look at the Q&A box. And I see, yeah, one question, are there examples, oops, sorry. Are there examples from other industries that refer to regulatory requirements, driven rollout? Yeah, well, this BIAN is actually banking related. There is something similar to insurance companies in Germany or European Union. Besides that, we know that yeah, in the last, let's say, 2 years, a lot of customers relied on a GDPR use case. Try to use that to get a, say, this free ride for the LeanIX rollout. Besides that, I'm not aware of any other regulatories that we are using in other industries. Then one questions in regards to how integrations help during the rollout or in general. Yeah, well, integrating LeanIX with other solutions, that's actually for us, it's a question of yeah, gathering maturity in your EA practice. And going towards an automation for populating the inventory, relying less on manual efforts. And I mean, if you have stable systems in place that work out as a good data source, for example, a CMDB, and you have the time to integrate the CMDB even during rollout, why not? It will for sure drive the acceptance in regards to data quality. If you're more in an, let's say, optimize time to value mode, you need to act quick, especially in the beginning. Yeah, I'd rather opt for, let's say, one-time usage of the data in a manual approach and going for an automated integration a little bit later. In general, yes, we'd always recommend to integrate LeanIX to other sources like a BPM tool, a CMDB, or others to gather data and keep single sources of truth in your IT environment. Then what is your advice to manage the definition, especially on hierarchy levels in processes? What's the advice to manage the definition, especially on hierarchy levels in processes? So how we use processes, we mostly rely on processes as a, let's say, categorizing element from a business perspective. And what we recommend, if you have an established process model in place, we could actually use this one during your rollout. What you don't want to do is loading a highly volatile business process management model into LeanIX, into your workspace, and use this as a reference. In general, I would say the business process model and also definition of hierarchies and setting it up is more with, let's say, business analysts or business partners, probably on the business side itself, than with an enterprise architect. I hope that answered those questions. All right. I do not see any additional questions yet. So I'd like to thank you for your participation in the webinar. I hope it was useful for you. There's one in the chat. Do you have a list of typical use cases? Yes, I would actually refer in a first step, refer to the website. So we are talking about application portfolio management, tech risk management, and integration architecture as key use cases in the EA workspace, and we'll be coming up with business transformation management use case, so more from a planning perspective in the near future. I think the website is a good resource to start, probably also the download area which offers a lot of content. That I think this will give you a good insight on what we do and what we support in regards to, I gotta say, our enterprise architecture suite. There are additional use cases talking more about cloud governance and cloud cost management in regards to our cloud native suite. If you want more details, I'm happy to answer your questions, so feel free to reach out. You'll find my my contact here, and well, besides that, I cannot say more than thank you very much for attending the webinar. I hope it was useful for you. You got an idea about the, let's say, the general directions, how to effectively roll out LeanIX, and I'm happy to talk to you soon. Goodbye, everybody.